All right. What is up, everybody? Happy Friday. I'm so excited about what we've got going on here inside the Launch Coalition today. I'm going to bring her on screen right away. I am joined by the CEO and founder of brandiD. Rachel, it's so good to see your face. Always good to have conversations with you.
It sure is. This was the highlight of my day. So excited to be
Yes.
here with you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it so much. We love having guest experts come into the Launch Coalition. And when it comes to branding, Rachel, you are the expert that I always turn to. You've got an extensive history and so much experience when it comes to branding and marketing and business in general. So for those of you who are not familiar with Rachel and her incredible repertoire of skills, she's the CEO and founder of the brandiD based in the lovely Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which, Rachel, I used to hate on it until I got the chance to visit you and Dino and the girls.
I used to hate on Pittsburgh too. In fact, when I was dating Dino, I actually said to him, this is one city that's never been on my list to visit. But I have grown to love it, especially in this last year and a half, because there's so many great walking trails and biking trails and hiking, you name it. So it's
Yeah,
it's
for
been a
sure.
good place to live through a lockdown.
Definitely. And one of that beautiful view that Dino and you showed me at the top of the mountain overlooking the whole city. I'll never forget that. It's one of my favorite trips that I got to experience with you all. So obviously I could wax lyrical about how awesome you are when it comes to branding for
Thank you.
so long. And brandiD is an incredible branding agency that helps, really, I view it as thought leaders. Anyone who's an author or an entrepreneur or a professional athlete who's starting a nonprofit, anybody who is a thought leader and says, I've got thoughts and I want to be a leader and I want to stand out in my marketplace, brandiD really helps them in so many ways. And obviously we're going to talk about what the heck is branding. I want to hear your insights on that. But you've worked with the UN, you've worked with print publications, you've done it all, Rachel. Well, in a nutshell, who's Rachel Gogos? How the heck did you become the branding expert that you are?
Gosh, it's been such a winding road, right? But I feel like all my past experiences have totally led me to what I do today because all the skills I learned in the past come in pretty handy running brandiD. But who am I? I'd say a deep part of my identity is my Greek heritage. Both my parents were immigrants from Greece to the U.S. My dad actually came through Ellis Island. If anybody's seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, a lot of my life is similar to that, except that my family was very pro education and pushed me to go to school, and I sure did do that. I love learning. So, yes, my past experiences from the nonprofit world to the Wall Street Journal, where I worked in print publications, to I worked in the private sector to, as well, have helped me start and grow brandiD because I use my writing skills. Day to day, I use my creative direction skills. I use my business skills, and the part I love most about working with a variety of clients is that it feels like I'm still learning so much and get to be educated through all their content and all their experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel you in that. I feel like we've got the coolest jobs in the world, Rachel. We both get to
I
work with
know.
amazing entrepreneurs all over the world. And we get to learn so much through those experiences of working with them. But I'm going to kick things off with you with a really broad question. And you and I've had the great pleasure of spending a lot of time with you and having a lot of conversations with you. And this is one topic that I always just say this simple question because every time we have this conversation, it goes in a different direction. Rachel, I'm going to ask you here today in front of the whole world on this live stream, what the
Uh-oh.
heck is branding?
Branding. So define branding. So you and I have talked about this. Like you said, the little b branding, right, is looking at your logo, your design aesthetic, your font styles, your colors. But what I love to do, and I know what you're super passionate about, is the big B branding, which is really thinking about the experience that your consumer, your student, your patient has with you in your business. And in order to build a brand, big B brand, you really have to analyze everything that your business stands for. And a lot of what your business stands for actually comes from what I love to do, your personal brand. And your personal brand is what I define as a mix or a cocktail. I know you love that analogy. I call it a personal brand cocktail, which is part marketing, part your reputation, and part your essence or your DNA or your true personality traits. When you combine those three things and get really clear on what they are, what they stand for, what you stand for, and you infuse those into your business brand, if you have a business brand, those are the aspects or the traits that really make your brand memorable and distinct and sticky. Sticky, super important because we want people to come back more and more, right? For more and more of whatever it is that we're selling.
It's interesting because some brands seem to have cracked the code, and particularly I'm a huge Tesla fanboy. Since the day that I bought a Tesla, Tesla can do no wrong in my eyes. I love Tesla, I love Elon Musk, I love their products, obviously. I drive one of their products. So brands like Tesla and Jeep and Harley Davidson and probably to an extent, I would say Nike. There's so many of those brands that have achieved. You said the word sticky. They are sticky brands. We all know them. We all love them. What is it that makes a brand sticky? And I don't want you to take the easy way out here, Rachel. I'm not here to make your life easy today. I'm going to make it really hard. And I want you to speak to those smaller entrepreneurs, maybe the solo entrepreneurs who are like, Rachel, I've got a web design agency. I've got a virtual assistant business. How the heck does a brand like that become sticky?
Yeah. A great question. But what makes those big brands sticky is they have really unique products. So if we look at Tesla, for example, they've completely innovated on the car, right? They've done funky things to the doors. They've made it more aerodynamic. There's the electric component, but there's also some other aspects of their brand, the customer experience, which actually I'd love to hear your thoughts on. But some of the other brands you mentioned as well focus on that customer experience. They stand for something. You know, if we look at a brand like Whole Foods or Tom's Shoes, that's another popular sticky brand, though it hasn't been as out there as much in the last year or so. But they stand for a particular cause that they want to promote. Let me think of how to explain this, but when we frequent those brands, it also says something about ourselves, right? About our own qualities, it says something about our own brand. For example, you love innovation and technology. You love to be on the cutting edge of things. You have a very kind of sleek and clean design aesthetic about you, Brian. And Tesla, I think, represents that. And so the car appeals to you for those reasons. But then because you're a Tesla owner and driver, that also sends a message to other people about your brand. So in turn, that stickiness, right? Like you're actually an advocate and an evangelist for Tesla for all the reasons we just talked about for them. But here we are today talking about it, right? So we've given them at least 30 seconds, maybe more of airtime to however many people are listening. And those are, that's just one example of how that stickiness moves forward from person to person.
Yeah, for sure. I love the fact, Rachel, and it's probably when you and I talk branding just personally between the two of us, it's probably the thing that we come back to most frequently. And I'm glad you brought it up so quickly in our conversation today, which is customer experience. And you and I are both really keen on providing good customer experiences. I'm just going to share one story. I don't think I've talked about this publicly before. So I'm one of those crazy people that pays one of my credit cards has a $450 annual fee. And people are always like, dude, why do you pay the $450 annual fee? And obviously, it comes with benefits. Like I'm not paying it just because I like the credit card itself, but because it comes with a lot of benefits. But Rachel, I'll never forget, it's the first card that I paid with a high annual fee. And when it came in the mail, came in this presentation box. You take the credit card out of this beautiful like foam padded display case. It felt like an experience. I was like, man, this is what the billionaires probably feel like when they get a black card. Like it feels like luxury, and it was truly an experience. Talk to us about some of those experiences that you've seen smaller entrepreneurs provide in normal experiences. Oh, if you've got a prop, I'm even happier.
So this is actually a really cool new app. I got to look at the name of it, but let me grab it. So a friend of mine texted me a gift. So I got a text message that said, so-and-so has sent you a gift. Click on this message. And you got like an unboxing experience on your phone.
No way.
So it shows like an envelope opening up. And then it says, you get to pick between these 4 options. It's a candle. Then you get to pick the scent you want. It goes on and on and on, right? And it takes you to the final screen where you enter your email address, your physical address, etc. And so I'm like, oh, this is awesome. What a lovely thing, right? I'm all excited about it. It's just through this text message. But then I forget about it, right? And then 4 or 5 days later, I get this box in the mail. And here it is. I actually kept it in the box. Oops. You know me, I have no sense of direction. So this is what it looks like. But then you open this up. Look at this beautiful presentation. Really nice cardstock, by the way. Here's the candle. And then there's also like this little box of kind of, traditional old school matches, which are really hard to find. Um, and it just gave me that sense of delight all over again, right? Like first I was delighted that my friend thought of me and is sending me this gift. Then I get to pick it out and there's this cool experience on my phone. But then I get the physical product and again, the quality is just amazing. The paper quality, it's really thick and the whole unboxing experience. So that's just one example of a customer experience. Another recent one I had ordered these shoes from Zappos and the size didn't fit quite right. So I ordered the same shoes 2 weeks later, but the price had gone up $35. So I called Zappos and explained to them and they looked and they're like, you know what, your package hasn't shipped yet, but if you call back when your package ships or when you receive it, we'll certainly give you that $35 price difference back. I was like, okay, cool. So I get them. I forget about it for a couple of days, but I called Zappos and that customer service rep that picked up the phone says, you know what? The person you had talked to 2 weeks ago actually already made the refund. They must have marked it in their own calendar and remembered to just go in and give you that money back. And again, Bri, like here we are talking about these really cool experiences. It's free marketing for these companies. And that's why creating an amazing experience is so important. And I also think there are just very small ways of sending love. And I think sending love in your packages, whatever they are, physical or email, really is something that hits the heart of the recipient in whatever way, shape, or form that happens. And I'll give you just one more example from today. I don't actually have the cup with me, but I went to one of my favorite cafes. It's about a half hour away this morning because I was driving in that neighborhood and it took a little bit longer to physically get the coffee. But I was watching the barista before I took my first sip and I was kind of in a rush and I'm thinking, gosh, she's taking a while, And I saw her pouring the milk and she just like did it really slowly. And there was a line of people and I was thinking I gotta go, but then I was thinking like she's pouring this cup of coffee with love and with artisanship, and she's taking her time. And instead of like foaming two milks for two coffees at one time, she did them one at a time. Because I brought one home to Dino actually. And again, I was thinking like if I were that barista, I may have rushed through it a little bit but then if I paused long enough and just enjoyed the experience because I couldn't stay in the cafe, that they're still shut down, I thought, what a way that this person is like really enjoying the craftsmanship of her job. And then I took a sip and I was like, this is love in a cup. No wonder it tastes so good.
I love that story, Rachel. And the Northeasterner in me is like, man, I know a lot of Bostonians that would be like, what is
Hurry
taking
up.
so long?
I
Yeah.
know.
And so to me, that's part of the beauty, though. And a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly when they're starting out, and Rachel, you and I were both beginner entrepreneurs once upon a time, and you're terrified of pissing some people off. You're terrified of some people not liking your style, and you want to serve everybody. But the fact of the matter is that barista, if someone is, a classic Bostonian, you and I both have a lot of love for Boston, then yeah, maybe you don't want that craftsmanship. Maybe you don't want love in a cup. So you go to Starbucks. It is what it is. And you can't serve everybody. So I love that example for sure. I just want to interject one really quick thing here because this is a video that I make every single one of my students watch. It's called Building Brand Hysteria. It's by Johnny Cupcakes. So Rachel, have I ever shared this video with you?
No, I'm writing it down.
Oh my gosh. All right. Do you know the brand Johnny Cupcakes?
No.
So it is a 7-figure t-shirt company out of Boston, Massachusetts, started by Johnny Earl. So I've got a lot of love for Johnny since he's a fellow Bostonian. And I've met Johnny before. He came to my college actually and spoke, so I had the chance to interact with him a little bit. And Johnny Cupcakes, this tiny little t-shirt company in Scituate, Massachusetts, every single time that they ship out a t-shirt, Rachel, they put a little goodie in there. So when you order a t-shirt from them, might have a $5 bill in there, might have a Snickers bar, might have a G.I. Joe action figure. You never know what you're getting. But if you search Twitter, so many people, thousands of people all over the world are posting like, I just bought this t-shirt from Johnny Cupcakes and look what came in the box. And you
That's
talk about free
brilliant.
advertising. I love that story. So yeah, customer delight, and you and I have called it before, delight marketing. Those things are so easy, so attainable. But I think what it really comes down to, and I think this is where you excel, Rachel, is you just got to think about the human. It's the only way you
Yeah.
can figure these things out.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I always tell my team, and I notice this when I get emails too, is I call it user generosity. And it's such a simple thing. But if I send an email to a potential client or a client, and I might be referring to something I had sent them, I don't know, a week or two before, but it was an attachment or a link to something, instead of forcing them to like go and dig for that email and find that link, I'll be sure to reattach everything, relink everything, because that's going to save that person time. And I know they're going to think, how cool, I have everything right here, or at least I hope they do. I know when I receive an email like that where the person has been thoughtful and not made me hunt around for things that they've sent me in the past, I think, gosh, this person's like paying attention to detail. They're thinking about my time. They're just making it so easy for me to shop with them or whatever it is, support them, whatever the topic of the email is. So, oh, and by the way, we never went back to that Tesla experience, so we can now or like later on. But I definitely want to hear your take on it too, the experience that they provide as an owner.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Tesla's a really different car experience. It's unlike any car that I've ever gone through that process before. Actually, shout out to Daniel Cueva, who is a podcaster and business owner that I really respect and admire. He's one of my close friends in Los Angeles. He's actually watching this live stream, which is why I'm bringing him up. Right away, he commented, the second you and I were talking about Tesla, he goes, Tesla fanboy number 2 right here. And it's true because Daniel and I were actually together at a Dodgers game in Los Angeles, California. At the Dodgers game, we were talking about Teslas and how amazing they are. And we were like, why don't we own Teslas? We bought our Teslas at the Dodger game.
Wow.
And we
Online?
yeah, and that's the thing is you can only buy it online. You can't go to a dealership and buy a Tesla. And so from there, it's such a fascinating experience. Like the anticipation, the buildup of waiting to, touch your Tesla, see your Tesla, drive your Tesla, feel your Tesla. The anticipation of that creates such an experience and so much hype that by the time you get it, it's just like, wow. And then everything is right. Everything works. The car takes care of so much for you. I remember Daniel came with me when I picked my Tesla up in San Diego. We autopiloted up the highway back to Los Angeles, and everything felt right about it, and it felt like the car was taking care of us, even to the fact where they already had my driver profile created in the car. So when I got in the car,
Wow.
it already said Brian, and I was like, that's so cool. Rachel, let's be honest, probably took them 5 seconds to do it, but it's a long-lasting memory for me.
Yeah. Those subtle little details. And again, it's like the barista pouring the milk really slowly, right? Like it takes a little extra time, but it's just a way of sending love, really, right? Like, because didn't you feel like you were heard, you were honored when you got in your car and it already had your name in it?
Yeah, but it goes to, there's a weird point here, Rachel, that I want to make. I'll say this openly about my Tesla experience. In a weird way, us Tesla owners feel a connection to Elon Musk, the CEO.
Okay.
And so obviously Elon Musk didn't put Brian in my Tesla. He didn't write that. But because he has so much attachment to Tesla and what it is as a company and as a brand, we have so much association with him. And I obviously respect him because he's a brilliant guy. He's an incredible entrepreneur. He's definitely a visionary and a big dreamer. And so I do feel that attachment to him as the CEO of the company whose car I drive. Now, granted, I've had a BMW, I've had Mercedes, I've driven a Toyota, I've had an Audi, I've had all these different cars. I can't tell you a single one of their CEOs. And that's why I want to transition this. I want to talk to you about that, the person behind the brand, the people behind it. And I know it's a hot topic with entrepreneurs of personal branding. Should I have a personal brand, or I just have a web design agency? What's your take on that and how personal brands tie in with your actual company?
That's such a great question. I'm so great you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to share that it has been my experience that everybody I've worked with, and even looking at big brands like Virgin or Zappos, for example, that the core values of the owner or the founder are very much embedded in the corporate or business brand. And how that shows up is, if you think about the values that are most important to you. So for me, it's integrity, it's excellence, it's beauty. Those are three of mine. I have indirectly embedded those in the fiber of brandiD, my company, in various ways. And in talking to other business owners, small and large, they've done the same thing, down to the point where it can be part of the culture that they're creating. Then they may actually list those values out very openly and transparently, or they might be part of a training program. This is something that I think, again, like, is one of the things that make a big difference and help make a brand really sticky.
Rachel, I'm going to put you on a spot because I do want to push a little harder on this topic. And I know that you're too humble to admit the quality and the caliber of clients that you've worked with, but you've worked with huge names, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs that literally everybody has heard of. And I know that you don't name drop a lot and you don't humble brag about a lot of that stuff, but I am going to put you on the spot. Don't worry, I'm not going to name drop for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I do want to put you... I could see your eyes. Talk about anticipation. I could see you being like, Brian, where are you going? But I do want to put you on the spot because there's a tangible difference between those people and just think about the entrepreneur that you and I met through. So think about him, really successful 7-figure entrepreneur. What's the difference? What's the difference between him and a business or a life coach that's just kind of lost in the noise online? What is the difference with those leaders?
Well, I think part of it is setting your GPS, right? Like, so the leader that you're mentioning that we met through, I think it was part of his original plan to make a big impact in the world on the topic. His topic is really about living a good life, living a happy life, and I know that's something that he exemplifies in his own personal life. And I think it's important for him to kind of create this ripple effect and get that out there as well, that concept, right? And then literally like teach people how to have a good life. The kind of like the average coach, let's say, or just, there's so many coaches in the world and consultants in the world. I think if your intention is to get big or to impact a lot of people, and you set your GPS for that. And by set your GPS, I mean that really is one of your long-term goals, and you're very intentional about reaching it. And by intentional, I mean you think, okay, in 3 years, I want to be here. And how do I look back? 3 years, here I am. How do I look back from that point? And how do I get here? Well, I have to do all these things. Maybe it's deliver a TED Talk. Maybe it's write a book. Maybe it's this or that, right? To get to major impact. But some people want a lifestyle brand. And by lifestyle brand, I mean they want to make a certain dollar amount. That could be high 6 figures or mid 6 figures. Whatever that dollar amount is fine. And the other question that I love to ask people that helps them set their GPS is, how do you define success? What does that mean for you? Does it mean owning a house and paying for your kids' college if you have children? Or does it mean owning a Tesla? Or does it mean just outright owning your house and it's a small house, but you just want to have no debt, right? There's so many ways that we define success, but getting clear on how you define it and knowing where that goalpost is will help you achieve whatever it is that is. So again, like back to the lifestyle business owner, it's great if you know that you want to do X, Y, Z and you can achieve that, because for you, it might not be about this massive ripple effect and impact. So ultimately, it has to be your why is your own why. You have to be crystal clear on it, and you will achieve whatever it is that is there. The why is important to be crystal clear on because you're going to have tough days, right? You're going to have days where you want to quit. You're going to have days where you're not sure which direction to go in. But if you keep coming back to that why, and you keep coming back to how you define success and how to attain it, and the 3-year mark or the 1-year mark or 10-year mark, whatever that is for you, then little by little by little, you're going to achieve that.
This is fun, Rachel. I don't think you and I have ever talked about branding within the context of timeline. And you brought up long-term versus short-term. Do you mentally make some distinctions between short-term branding activities, which are probably the small B stuff that you talked about earlier
Mhm.
in our conversation, versus those long-term? You talk about a TED Talk. So, for example, a newer entrepreneur isn't going to go out and right away be like, "Yo, I'm doing a TED Talk. This is how I'm building my brand." Obviously, there is a distinction between short-term and long-term. Can you give us some examples of how you would differentiate those? I mean, obviously, you and I like to kind of bash on the simplicity of logos and visual design, but
Yeah.
short-term, those can be fruitful. I'm curious on your
Yeah.
take on that.
Yeah. So you just mentioned about the TED Talk, right? And like a new entrepreneur maybe not doing a TED Talk. But I really think it depends on what somebody's bringing to the table. So, for example, I have a client I've been working with for a long time, and she used to be a professor in academia in the state of Ohio, and she has her PhD. She got tired of academia and she left and she started her own consulting slash coaching company, but she's extremely entrepreneurial in that she couldn't just do coaching and consulting and position herself as a keynote speaker. She also launched a membership site. She also has masterminds. She also does group programming. She's extremely entrepreneurial and is very effective in repurposing her content and her assets. And so somebody like her could go out and deliver a TED talk, right? A couple months after she puts up a shingle defining herself as the consultant and the speaker. Um, and so what I want to say is like you business owner, you entrepreneur have to think about the ingredients that are already part of your expertise, your experience, right? Like your strong skills, because you might be able to hit off some big tactics in a short time frame. I don't think that's time related, and where well, actually, let me back up. I was reading about a super entrepreneur the other day. She sent an email out. She started her business in 2015, where she did high six figures. By 2017, she had done a very healthy seven-figure business. And then by last year, I think she said she had done $19 million dollars for 2020, which is really impressive, right? And that's in a 5-year time frame. So she obviously like hit the ground running. She's able to capitalize on things she had done in her past, but she also figured out very quickly how to scale from zero in this new business to a $19 million business in a year where there was a pandemic going on. So I don't actually think that branding tactics are time based from the point of achieving your success. I think different tactics take different amounts of time to implement, right? So the TED Talk kind of has a long lead time because you have to pitch TED, you have to get accepted, you have to, before that, you actually have to see where different TEDs are going on and what the topic is for that TED, and then think about does your content, does your message feed into that? So it may actually take you a year to deliver on a TED Talk, but not because you're not ready for it, just because that tactic is going to take a while to deliver. So does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I want to push you then a little bit on those
Yep.
shorter term ones. So
Yeah.
really actionable ones. So actually,
Yeah.
Rachel,
Yep.
you and I talk about a lot of things a lot of the times, but we haven't talked about my word of the year for 2021. And
Okay.
my word this year is actions. And it's not
Okay.
action, it is specifically actions. And that's because when I want to accomplish anything, I don't say, oh, you got to take action. We know that. We've
Yeah.
got Gary Vee telling us to hustle enough. But for me, it is tangibly saying, what are the actions that I can put in right now, that I can take right now that will deliver that result? And so I want to push you on those actions for newer entrepreneurs or for smaller entrepreneurs who, let's say, haven't cracked consistently $100,000 in revenue a year. What are the actions that they should and can be taking when it comes to their brand?
Yeah, awesome. So one thing I love to tell people to do is guest post. So you don't have to have a big following or a big reputation to open up a guest posting account on medium.com, for example, and some other big mainstream websites such as that one. So that's one. Just go ahead, open an account and post a piece of content that in the end, in the little bio part, you can actually share who you are, but then also share the link to go back to your site, because that track back from an SEO perspective is really good. But more importantly, it's a potential Google hit on a site that will get ranked high because it has a lot of visitors, like a medium.com. your name being in that publication will rank very high on a Google search for your name. So that's one thing. The other is think of the influencers in your industry and try to connect with them either through social media, or if they have an active blog that allows comments, go ahead and comment on their blog, because again, their comments will show in a Google search and your name on their site associated with their name will also pop up. And then the third thing is, again, depending on your industry, but think of those influencers once again, or people who have achieved much greater success or fame or just further along than you are. Do they offer something that you can affiliate for them? Why do you want to do this? It's not so much about the dollar you're going to make from the affiliate. It's just about the relationship you're going to build with that person. And a fourth thing you can do is think about people who are serving the same audience that you are, but are selling a different product or a different service. Can you partner with those people, especially if they're a little further ahead than you? And the great part about this, and sort of like the halo effect of that for you newer entrepreneur, is again, you're associated with a brand that may be a bit more recognizable, or a personal brand that has been around a little bit longer, which will help legitimize you and also help build your reputation.
I dig that. Really, really good advice in there. And Rachel, while we were talking, so one thing that you and I have in common is our huge love for William Brown. I know both of us feel the same
Yeah.
way about William. And William, who's an awesome coalition member, actually just posted a question. This is going to be a fun one. So William's a dude that you and I both respect immensely, and I think that it's going to be an easy question for you to answer. But William, the work happens on your side to really interpret what Rachel's about to tell you. So William said, I'm fascinated by this personal brand question. We're such complicated human beings. I find it hard to wrap my head around staying on brand and showing up with authenticity, as if those two are separate. Rachel, bring them together for us.
So before I answer that question, here's a great example. Again, thank you, Brian, for giving me more screen space, of William and his excellent branding. He sent out these cards around the holidays for those of us that were on his one word show. But the quality of this card, really high quality, really nice photography, just a really well done piece. It's so well done. I actually kept it. Right here we are in March. It's still on my desk, and I keep it because William just makes me very happy. He's just such a loving person, and also because he has come a long way in the time I've known him. He's always been an extremely authentic guy, but a bit more behind the scenes. And in the last year and a half or so, he's really come into himself. And why I'm sharing this is because he found his voice. And it's impossible to find your true authentic voice and not build your brand at the same time. Because when you're really out there being yourself, your most true self, it's actually impossible not to be a sticky brand or become a sticky brand. And sticky brand doesn't mean you're a huge brand, but it just means that the people that you're coming in contact with, your customers or potential customers, will remember you, and will come back to you and will refer business to you, even if they don't buy from you, because you're doing something right. And part of what you're doing right is just showing up as yourself. I think that's the biggest asset in personal branding, because there's no one person like you. Not to sound hokey, but the biggest differentiator between Coach A and Coach B is their personality, is their true authentic self.
Yeah, I love that answer. And because for you so often, Rachel, like to me, when I think of brandiD and everything you do with all of your clients, I think, and I argue this about my own business, I'm curious if you would agree with this statement, Rachel. I always say to people, I've got the easiest job in the world. I don't have any answers. I just literally have other people say the correct answers for themselves, because I believe that successful businesses there's not like a cookie cutter process. Basically, It's, hey, who the heck do you want to serve? Do you really care about helping those people? Okay, cool. How do we help those people? And that's where the answers lie. I don't need to have any of the answers. And the same, I would say, as an outsider, is the true for you and your business in the way that brandiD operates. Is you never say to a client, we have the answers. We can tell you how to build a big brand. Instead, you say, you have all the right answers. We're just going to help you illuminate what those right answers are and use those. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think both of us, right? And this is why you're a teacher. Like you know the tactics, you know the tools to build a business, right? Like you know some of the foundational elements, but we collectively can't be our clients' brands. We can't be their essence. We can't be their customer experience. Like they've got to figure out for themselves what those distinct aspects are for their business. So yeah, it is totally true from that sense.
Awesome. And that's the cool thing. Everyone listening, Rachel and I don't have the answers, and you don't have the answers for your clients. So often the answers come from a place of authenticity, a place of caring. Rachel, that's why I think I like our business conversations so much. You, more than anyone else on the planet, our conversations always go back to, hey, love your clients, love the people you serve, love your audience. When you treat people with love, good things happen. And I really like that. But I do want to put my listener cap on right now, because as I'm listening to you talk, Rachel, I'm just like, man, there are so many different parts of a brand. There is the visual aspects, there's the customer experience assets, or aspects, there's the me aspects of what values do I have and what values do I want to instill in my brand and my outward facing appearance. How the heck do we tie all of those things in together? There's so many aspects. And I'm thinking, Rachel, I've seen so many amazing businesses that their YouTube videos look like one thing. Their email newsletters look like another thing. Their website looks completely different. It's just nothing's tied in. How the heck do we get to that point where things feel and look tied in?
Well, and that's when the little b branding comes in, which is so important too, because it communicates a cohesive vibe, a cohesive feeling. It communicates that we're paying attention to the details in our business. It communicates that we want to match, right? Just like when we get dressed in the morning, we're probably going to wear clothing most of the time that matches and looks good together. It's the same thing. So I would suggest if you're on a budget, look at a company like 99 Designs or even Fiverr and start with the logo. Now, and I know Brian agrees with this, you do not need a logo to start a business. But what you do need is a consistent color palette, and you need a consistent font or fonts that you want to use. And so when you're making a background, say for Facebook, if you're using a tool like Canva or LinkedIn or Twitter, if you're making a background image, or Instagram, make sure that the fonts that you're using and the colors you're using are very similar to whatever you've used on a website. Or if you have printed business cards, which I know are probably dating me at this point, but again, if you have them, make sure the colors and the fonts are consistent. Just pick 2 or 3 colors max to represent your brand, not your logo. A logo should always be 1 or 2 colors. But for a website or any other collateral, I would say up to 3 colors is max. And then pick 1 or 2 fonts that you really like and just consistently use those on everything. And oh, one other thing, really important to pay attention to this, and it's super easy, photographs of yourself. So on social media, use a photo of yourself that was even taken with your iPhone, but it should just be of you. Like, don't have the wedding picture that is half of you and you can tell somebody's missing. It's not the Christmas card photo where like you're just cropped out. Just have a friend take, iPhones are amazing today. Take a good picture of you and just use the same photo, or at least a photo where you look current across all your different platforms.
Yeah, definitely good advice. And if you guys want to see this in action, just go to Rachel's business's Facebook page, go to brandiD, or the brandiD on Facebook is how you can find it. Just search the brandiD and you can see all of Rachel's running ads. You can see all of their posts. You can go to Rachel's website and you're going to see Rachel, I think a couple of years ago, had some awesome pictures taken around Pittsburgh, and you can see how consistent all of the imagery and the visuals are with the brandiD. And especially, you mentioned fonts. It's one thing, Rachel, I've always admired how much you guys nail fonts at the brandiD. So I think it's really important. I do want to touch on that a little bit more because I know a lot of coalition members love a good tool. You mentioned 99 Designs. What are some good tools? And especially for non-creative, like visually creative people like me, I love the fact that there are font pairing tools. I love the fact that there are color palette generators. What are some good tools that people should be aware of for branding?
One of my favorite font websites is called dafont, DAFONT.com. You
Rachel,
can
own
actually,
it. Come on. Defont.
the font, yes. So what I love about that site too, and actually Google has a great great site too. It's Google Fonts, but you can type in the text that you want to use in that particular font, so you can actually see how the letters and do that, because an A in one font, for example, is different than an A in another font, and it may not look like the A you want it to look like. So definitely play around with the actual text you want to see. A great color website is called Color Lovers, and I believe that's COLOUR and then lovers.com. You can create some custom palettes on there, and all these sites are free. You may end up purchasing a font, and I would just say if you can use a Google font on your website, always better. Besides the fact that it's free, it's just a little bit easier to work with on the back end of a WordPress website too.
Yeah, for sure. Good advice there. And Google Fonts are free, as Rachel said, free to use personally and commercially. So definitely check out Google Fonts. They're so incredibly easy to integrate with whatever your website is built on, Squarespace, WordPress, ClickFunnels, whatever it is, they can all integrate with Google Fonts. And that way it also loads faster for a user experience. So don't overcomplicate things. I think it's a really recurring theme of everything that you and I both do, Rachel.
Oh, one other thing to talk about for a second is stock photography, and there's some great free stock photography websites out there. We actually have a list, so I can drop it. It's just a Google Doc. I can drop it into the Facebook page later on today.
Awesome. That would be great for sure. And I'll make sure it gets inside the coalition. I'm so excited for coalition people to get their hands on that. Rachel, just to close the loop on William, he said, thank you. You guys are a big part of me discovering my voice. William, we freaking love you so much. You're an awesome entrepreneur, and we're excited to see everything that you do already and everything you're doing in the future. Daniel says, so many golden nuggets. Elizabeth says, I love that. As a life coach, I really worry about oversaturation, but I love what you said about personality. Elizabeth, for sure, go deeper into Rachel's stuff. She's got worksheets, she's got roadmaps, so many resources for you about how to freaking find out what it is that you stand for. One thing that I've always referred back to, I don't have it on my desk right now, it's always within an arm's reach typically, is a personal branding worksheet that lists a ton of values that you may or may not have. Pick out the ones that are meaningful to you. Rachel, you know what? I'm gonna give you the stage. Tell us about your personal branding workbook.
Oh, yes. I have a copy somewhere too.
I'm
Gosh,
glad one of us
Brian,
does.
should we share the do I still owe you a copy? Oh my God. Oh, good Lord. Okay, so my book. Thank you to Brian, who pushed me for about a year to get this out. It almost broke Brian and my friendship up, but we recovered because the relationship is deep and true. But yes, the book took a while to birth. It came from the years I had been working and basically asking people a lot of the same questions. But I had, and to our coach friend that put that comment, if you have a framework that you're finding that you're using and you're using over and over with people, so it's something you can define as your framework, that is another way to be distinct within your field. So after many years, I created a framework called Soul ID. The S stands for strategy, the O for optimize, the U for utilize, and the L for leverage. And why the word soul? Because I feel like we get to the soul or the heart of the person that we work with, and that's what we inject into the brands that we help them build. Um, the book takes you through each of those sections, and it's meant to be written in. It's meant to be just a book that you have by your bedside and think about. There's a lot of introspective exercises in that, so it's not a book you're going to quickly get through. And it does also have a lot of marketing tactics in there, and you can get it on Amazon.com.
Yeah, and the big thing is it's not a book that you read, it's a book that you work through. And I think that's a really important perspective. And I think it's healthy for literally every single entrepreneur, which is why I pushed Rachel for so long and so intensely. I was like, Rachel, people need to do this stuff because it is honestly people who pay Rachel a heck of a lot of money. Within the workbook, you're going to see the actual exercises that she takes those clients through. So Rachel, super excited for people. What's the full name that they should search for on Amazon?
Well, you know what we can do? I have a really good friend who helped me build a free plus shipping funnel. I'm sure Brian has taught you about those free plus shipping funnels. Brian, you're that very good friend. So why don't we put that link in the coalition group, and that way they can get the $9.95 version, right? Because they'll just pay for that shipping piece and we can get it to them.
Awesome. That is amazing. I will very happily and excitedly share that link inside the coalition. So thank you for offering a free copy to coalition members, Rachel. You do just have to pay shipping and handling. It's a no-brainer. Don't even think about it. The second I copy and paste that link into the coalition, just click it, enter your information, do it. It's a very simple decision that you'll make on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Rachel, you have given us so much value, so many golden nuggets. I so appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap this conversation up? And of course, before we leave, I'm going to give you the platform to tell people where the heck they should go to learn more about you and brandiD.
Sure. One more thing I'd like to add, or just in closing, I would say, just like Brian said, don't complicate things. So if you're just getting started and you've got a tight budget, just be very careful about what you invest in creating. There's a lot of free tools or really inexpensive tools out there that you can use to legitimize yourself and build a reputation online. I suggest you start with those. And once you monetize your business and monetize it to a point when you can start investing in it, then start investing in the products that are a little bit more expensive, like a professionally done website, for example, or professionally done copywriting. That's a huge help too. But in the meantime, just get by with what you can. That's inexpensive. Build your business, monetize it, keep growing and growing. And remember to tune into your why, because that will get you through the tough days. In terms of where you can find me, I would say the best place is Facebook. I'm just under my personal brand there too, Rachel Gogos. If you have any questions, follow-up questions from today, please hit me up there. And also, we created a website for people just also getting into entrepreneurship. It's called buildyourbrandid.com, and there's a lot of really inexpensive tools to help you launch your business on there too.
I love it. BuildYourBrandID.com. And also for every single one of you coalition members, Rachel's offering you a free copy of her workbook. I'm going to drop that link inside the coalition, so check that out. Also find Rachel on Facebook at Rachel Gogos, and always check out her company website at brandid.com or search the brandiD on Facebook. Rachel, this was a ton of fun. Thanks so much for coming in and speaking to the coalition today.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a